Ramadan this year starts on May the 5th, or actually approximately May the 5th, because it does depend on a moon sighting around that time to confirm the new moon and when the month starts. And it lasts for approximately a month, then probably around June the 5th. At the end of Ramadan, you have the Eid al-Fitr holiday and festival where Muslims around the world celebrate. In this part of the world, that would typically be at least 3, if not 4 or 5 days off for public and private sector, and it's probably the major public holidays of the year. What happens during Ramadan? Well, I think from an international perspective, or perhaps a non-Muslim perspective, the most obvious manifestation is that Muslims won't eat or drink during daylight hours. The majority of Muslim adults will fast. So if you're here at that time, you wouldn't expect to be offered drinks in a meeting. A lot of restaurants are obviously closed. Some in the region are able to open under special licenses. But in general, I think business does go on. I've been in the region for 11 years, and every year I've seen less and less impact from Ramadan, because as the region becomes more international and sort of more tied into the global economy, there's simply more happening during Ramadan. I do think that as a visitor, as a guest, as somebody doing business in this part of the world, you should obviously be aware of it. So things like dealing with your counterparts, your local, your Muslim counterparts at that time. Remember that they've probably not had much sleep because they've been up late in the night and woken up early before sunrise. So particularly at the beginning of the month, you do find people are very tired, and that can impact things. Be aware, for example, if you're operating in a time zone behind the Middle East and you're normally calling in or contacting people here in morning your time, afternoon here, the office day will typically finish then at 2 or 3 o'clock by law, so people won't be around. But actually, conversely, I find it's a good time to do business and a good time to visit, because people tend to be around. It's a time for people to be with families, so there's probably less international travel during Ramadan, so a good time to visit the region if you're wanting to see somebody and making sure they're in town, with the obvious caveats that it might be a bit slow, or that the diary, the calendar might change, that sort of thing. Facts about Ramadan. I mean, I think the interesting one from a doing business perspective is that despite all the fasting and all the things that are happening there, food sales and consumption of food and drink actually rises during Ramadan, because in the evening, the iftar feast and the suhoor feast later in the evening, actually people are, they're having big banquets, big family meals, and so food and drink actually increases at that time. There's an old British brand called Vimto, which is a sort of a fruit cordial, and sales of Vimto go off the charts during Ramadan because it's full of vitamin C, and it's sort of become the Ramadan drink in the region. But I think that the message to international business is continue to do business during Ramadan, do visit, be sympathetic and aware of your hosts and your local counterparts, but it's business as usual with those few small changes.